So typically when we try to get a guest for Meaningful People, we reach out to maybe them themselves, their team, their student, their wife, their husband. We reached out to Ellie Beer, and we didn't realize at the time he was going through a life-altering, life and death situation, and it was the height of COVID, and Ellie Beer almost died. And I think just for that story alone of how he recovered and how he made it out would be enough to talk to him about, but that's not even the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
Who is Ellie Beer? No.
Ellie Beer is the director, the founder of United Hatzalah in Israel. You know, you see those Ambu-cycles, you see the orange vests running around. That all started with Ellie Beer as a young child who had a vision, who had an idea to change the way emergency response is done in Israel, and even in the world. He has a very popular TED Talk that he presented, which you can find also, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can find on YouTube. And just introducing the Ambu-cycle, which his ideal response time to a tragedy is less than 90 seconds.
It's crazy. The story of Ellie and how he brought his dream to life is something you really want to listen to, so enjoy. Welcome to the Meaningful People podcast, the podcast where we talk to people who are
meaningful.
Yeah, that sounds good. We have the pleasure of, we always have Orange in this office, thanks to Nachi.
Oh, stop.
Okay. And we have someone
we love gingies.
Orange is, I think, is your color because you run at United Hatzalah. We have Ellie Beer in the house. Thank you, all the way from Israel.
Yeah,
Thanks
we
for having
appreciate
me.
you. Appreciate you taking time out of your really busy schedule.
I just want to point out something interesting. We started this show, and you were definitely on the list, and then you got very sick with COVID, like very sick, and we were saying to him, the world was saying to him, and Baruch Hashem, you're here, and we'll get into that experience. So we have extra karzatov to Hashem that you're with us today. So thank you for getting better.
Thank you for davening for me.
Of course.
And it's great to be here. I really wanted to come for a long time, but Chazdei Hashem, I'm here.
So could you take us back to your childhood? Like, it's confusing. Like, I would think you're American, but you're actually Israeli. Where are you from, and what was your childhood?
So it's complicated because I speak like an American, but I was born and raised in Israel. People ask me all the time, so how do you have English so well? You know, how's the English? So I said, I'm just a smart guy. But the truth is, my parents are from here, from this area. Actually, my father grew up in Lower East Side, but moved to the Rockaways, and they made Aliyah 69 to Israel. So I was born and raised there.
And you lived there your whole life?
My whole life. My mother actually...
But your parents spoke to you in English?
Only English. My mother's in Israel for over 50 years, and she's 92. So, I mean, most of her life she's in Israel, and you probably speak Hebrew better than her.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Not gonna do not know Hebrew well.
But that's guessing.
That's so amazing, though, because you lived in Israel your whole life, and you sound so American.
There's not so, I
It's
think,
even worse. I sound like a Brooklyner.
it's true.
And you never lived in Brooklyn.
You know, it's interesting because, like, people our ages, in their 20s, even in their 30s, there's a lot of people that, are in maybe the Har Nof area where they're from, or parents are from America and they're Israeli. But your age, I don't really know. How common is that you have people that are totally Israeli, but they are very, I guess, Americanized? Their parents just spoke English to them, like your age demographic.
It's very interesting because if you see the first wave of Americans coming to Israel were late 60s, early 70s, and their children speak perfect English because they spoke English at home, they spoke English in the neighborhoods where they moved in, Ramat Eshkol, Beit Vegan. But my children are not the same. My brother's children, my sister's children are not the same. They speak Hebrew, English, their English is Israeli. The kids who live in Ramat Beit Shemesh already, I'm talking about third generation Americans, are not as, their English is not as good. So I think the first generation has children that speak good English. So if you move to Israel with your kids, they'll speak good English as long as you speak English.
As long as you speak English, but haven't you sent to schools? The schools are English speaking?
Yeah. No. I went to school and I spoke only Hebrew, so my Hebrew is perfect. But when I came back home I had no other choice but speaking English to my parents.
Or you just not talk to them. That was the other choice, but it probably didn't get you. It wouldn't get you too far.
Ken.
And they spoke
Better.
Yiddish that I should not understand. So we had Yiddish, but I didn't know Yiddish. So
okay.
האם אתה חלמתי בעברית או באנגלית?
חלמתי.
אני מנסה להבין מה אתה אומר, לא מבין.
Yeah, so I basically I always ask people who speak both languages, do you dream in Hebrew or English or both?
I dream both, definitely.
It's a messed up question.
Yeah.
Why? I ask every meal I've gone to in my life. I ate a lot of meals in Israel. Whenever I bilingual people, I always ask that question.
You know, dreams are affected by things you did that day or that week. So if I'm in Israel for a while, and I'll definitely dream in Hebrew. And sometimes you wake up and you say something, right? Like someone wakes you up and you talk, and you can speak Hebrew or English, so that you know that you were dreaming that language. So I have both languages in my dreams.
Satisfied, Yaakov?
Yeah, no, it's cool. That's a good answer.
So jumping right in, a lot of people in their lives have good ideas, and they follow through on those ideas, and sometimes make a lot of money, sometimes get a lot of recognition. But you had this incredible idea that saves and have saved tens of thousands of lives. Like, how'd this come about?
So growing up in Israel, I was an entrepreneur when I was a child. I actually, like many of us, you're an entrepreneur. You're both entrepreneurs. So I grew up thinking of ideas all the time. And I actually remember the first business I started was trips that I used to do, maybe 13, 14 years old. I was
Dubai?
No, not then. Not then. I wish that would sell very well.
Yeah.
But I had trips to the Golan Heights.
It would also be a one-way ticket.
I grew up in Beit Vegan. Most of the children didn't have cars. Their parents didn't have cars. And during Ben Azmanim, they didn't have ways to go to the beach, or they had to, take a bus, Egged bus. I arranged buses. It was called Israel Tours, just a generic name. And I took them to different places. It was really wonderful. And then I started another business of Arba Minim, like probably you did it too.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like any good Jew.
Did very well. I was the age of 14. So
With the tours, you were like, how do you drive? Or you didn't drive, you just arranged that.
no, I used to get the buses and arrange everything and then put signs all over the neighborhoods on the trees.
But you weren't driving the buses.
No, but I actually, in the age of 15, joined the police in Yerushalayim so I could have a gun. It was very interesting. Then they had Mishmar Zorchi very young. They were 16, really. I think I got in when I was 15. Somehow they didn't have computers then. So I was part of the tour, not only as someone arranged everything, I was also securing, and I was an EMT then. So I was actually doing a lot of jobs.
How old are you when you became an EMT?
I was almost 15. I became
So you
an
had
EMT.
a passion for medical.
I grew up with a tremendous. All I cared about is one day to save someone's life. That's all I was caring about.
Did you think you'd be a doctor? Or
Well, I started. I don't know if you know Beit Vegan. That's where I grew up. It's right next to Yad Vashem. It's like it's a very American. Then it was very American. Now less. But when I was 6 years old, I was coming back from school from Cheder on a Friday afternoon, and near the school, a bus blew up. It was an Egged bus, number 12. It was a terrible incident where a lot of people were injured and killed. And I just remembered looking at people on the floor, seeing the bus on fire and yelling and screaming. I didn't know what to do. I was a child, and of course, I didn't understand that whole concept. What had happened? But I remember people screaming to me as a child for help, and I didn't know what to do. And I think that's what brought me to wanting to be a doctor when I grow up. And I remember taxi drivers coming and pulling people from the street into taxis, and they were bleeding, and it was really, I said, why are people pulled in like that? And then growing up, I always said I wanted to become a doctor. But the closest I got to was an EMT. So I became an EMT when I was almost 15 in 1988.
And was there any form of Hatzalah then, or it was
In
just
Israel,
a
no.
classic EMT?
Israel, we didn't have Hatzalah then. This was in New York. Hatzalah was existing, of course. But we didn't have, the only opportunity to become an EMT was to go to Magen David Adom. that we had no other choice. There were the ambulance service. You wanted to go through, become an EMT. It cost us money. We had to do the course. We had to register and everything, and then we could volunteer. So I actually was probably one of the youngest volunteers, and I went to volunteer, and I took it really serious. I used to come with a notepad and write down emergencies, what happened, what time we received the call, and what time we arrived there. And I used to see things that I couldn't understand why they don't fix it. Like the times between an emergency happening until we are on the ambulance, that takes time, because the ambulance crew always sit and they have the driver has his own room. Sometimes at nighttime they sleep, so you have to wake them up, and then you have to get in the ambulance and then get the address, and until you start driving, it could take a few minutes. And by the time we get there, it was an average of 17 minutes.
Wow.
And I was, every single time, I would, like we say, plots, that it takes us so long. But that's what it is. We had one station in Jerusalem. All the ambulances would be stationed there. And if someone in Gilo had a heart attack or baby choking in the middle of the night, it would take, or during the day, even worse, it would take us a long time to get to that person. And by the time we got there, the person was not alive anymore. And they didn't have the concept of what you see here and now what you see in Israel. So one day, what changed my life, and actually I decided to switch my whole mission in life, was when a 7-year-old boy was choking while he was having lunch. And we got the call. We were in the back of an ambulance. And we were the only ambulance available in the city. We got the call to respond to this child. It took us 21 minutes to get to him. We arrived. The kid was on the floor. He was completely blue and cold. And we started performing CPR, Heimlich, whatever we needed to do to take the object out. It was a little hot dog he was eating. And then we were working on him, and a minute later, a doctor runs into the house with he was holding a dog. He was walking his dog, and he saw an ambulance there. He said, "I'm going to come help." Hatzalah kamocha. And he says, "I'm a neighbor, but I'm a doctor too. What could I do to help?" We told him what happened. He was working with us for 30 minutes. And after 30 minutes, he says, "Just bring a sheet to cover him. We have nothing we could do." And I burst out crying. The mother burst. I mean, it was a terrible incident. I'll never forget how I felt that day. It was the worst day of my life. I'm seeing a 7-year-old boy die for nothing. A doctor lived a block away. He didn't know this kid is choking. And I said, I have to switch. I have to change it. It can't be a situation like this where people are dying because the ambulance didn't come back and they didn't get there in time. I said, if we get the doctors and the EMTs and the nurses and everyone else to know about emergencies way before ambulances, we will be able to save more lives, and actually save lives, not more, save. Because people could wait, who are breathing could wait 20 minutes, but someone's not breathing can't wait 20 minutes, can't wait 4 minutes. So I decided my life mission will be a 90 seconds response time.
Where's 90 seconds coming from? Or that's
90 seconds was the number when I was 16, I think I was almost 17 years old, I decided that incident with this boy, I said, I don't want a boy like him to wait for more than 90 seconds. And people said, why 90 seconds? I said, that's before the 2 minutes where the brain damage starts. Mm-hmm. So if someone's not breathing for 2 minutes, then the brain damage starts. Every minute a person doesn't have a heartbeat, 10% less chance of saving him. So if you get there in 10 minutes, it's 100% chance of not surviving. But if you get there in a minute and a half, you have a chance of saving that person and the quality of life of that
without
person.
any long-term effects.
Exactly. So that moment when I was 16 and a half, I decided I'm going to start a response team of volunteers to go before ambulances. The problem was they didn't want to share the calls with us. I went to Magen David and I offered them this idea. I said, listen, I volunteer in the back of an ambulance. I love it because it's a great feeling, helping people. It's really good, but we don't get there fast enough. Could you share the calls with us? We'll respond to emergencies before the ambulances. It's run by a group of nice people, very tough union people. They didn't want anyone to interrupt their business. and they wanted their business to continue the way it was because that's how ambulances
Right.
are.
And also in their defense, they don't know how serious you are, and you could be just someone coming in and going to start making a mess.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Look, if I would go into a service in France and tell them I want to do this at the age of 16, they would tell me the same. I don't think in New York City the same. But the idea was perfect. The idea was wonderful. It came from a 16-year-old boy. Actually, it was existing in New York, but in New York it was a little different because New York, Hatzalah didn't depend on the 911. They did it on their own.
Line.
I came to them and said, share emergency calls with us. We're not going to compete with you. Because don't forget, an ambulance needs to make a living. They charge for the service. They charge for the transport. They're not going to want someone else stealing their calls from them.
So you said, but you wouldn't be transporting. You'd just be getting there for emergency care.
Right.
So that's a big obstacle. So that's a big obstacle to your vision at that point. How did you get past that?
So that was my biggest obstacle in life. Should I just give up? Because they were very serious of me disappearing. And I said, you know what? I went back home. My father said, so what's with your new idea? Are you going to do this? I said to my father, they don't want to share emergency calls. So he says, you're just going to give up? I said, no. I decided to use Israel's biggest innovation. The biggest innovation Israel ever invented was chutzpah.
I thought you were about to say hummus.
Hummus, no. Chutzpah.
Chutzpah, okay.
By the way, the fact is that we say hummus is ours. That's chutzpah.
Oh, it's not?
Because it wasn't even
Really?
ours. No.
Turkey? Like where?
Who knows? Not Israel.
Yeah, but you're saying Israel chutzpah is Israel's thing.
We invented Mobileye, other things, not hummus. And we have good hummus, but that wasn't our biggest accomplishment. So I went over to my friends and I said, listen, they don't want to share calls with us. We're just going to buy walkie-talkie scanners. You're too young to know what they are.
To buff their calls.
To buff their calls.
Oh, my gosh.
And we bought a bunch of scanners. I bought 2 for my bar mitzvah money that I had. It was Radio Shack then.
Olav Shalom.
Olav Shalom.
Yeah.
And I bought 2 scanners, and I started listening to their calls. And I said, every time I hear a call nearby, I'm just going to run there.
Is that legal?
It wasn't. First of all, it wasn't illegal, but it wasn't for sure legal.
A gray area.
Great area.
You remind me of Spider-Man. That's what
so-
Spider-Man
that's so Israeli,
does.
It's a Spider-Man thing. I actually saw it. I used to read comic
Really?
books. Yeah. And I love the Spider-Man. He used to get up in the middle of the night listening into the police. Oh,
Right.
he's going to say that.
And he had the same thing. Like, the police are like, we handle these things. You don't. And he just circumvented
They hate
them.
him. The police
Right,
hated
exactly.
him.
And Batman was sort of like the regular Mugana because Batman had his own symbol. He had his own line. People called him.
No, he's gonna. I have a
I like the Spider-Man thing.
no, you're
I
like
didn't
Spider.
even-
He's also like Batman. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Interesting.
So you
This podcast is sponsored by Marvel.
Marvel. Well, NBC.
By the way, I could just tell you, I'm not sure if any of them will fit me. You know,
We'll get you a custom orange.
Isn't that the
Batman.
most Israeli thing ever, though? Is it legal? It's not illegal.
Right.
Okay, so it's in the gray area. Okay,
So
that's amazing.
So you started listening in, and you just started
going.
just
going.
Shall
And then one day, like my father had a little bookshop in Beit Vegan, and I used to work there in the afternoons. And I was listening into the radio while I'm selling books, Sforim. And I hear a call coming in of a man hit by a car on the same street I was in, Hapizga Street. And I just run out. I left the cash register open. I don't think anyone was looking. I had customers there, but I don't think anyone else was besides me. And I just ran out with the walkie-talkie. I'm running towards the address. And I heard an ambulance was dispatched. I get there. I had no medical supplies on me. I knew what to do, but I had no gloves or anything.
Right.
And I see him on the floor, an older person. He's hit by a car, and he was bleeding from his neck really bad from the mirror of the car. And I said, anyone have bandages here or anything? No one knew what to do. No one had bandages. So I decided I need to stop his bleeding, with something. And I took off my yarmulke, and I used my yarmulke as a tourniquet to just stop his bleeding. And I pushed it in as much as I could. And I just was waiting there for an ambulance. And it seemed like forever, but finally an ambulance arrived, and they took this person to the hospital. So I didn't know if he'll survive or not. I thought he's not going to make it because I never actually met someone who he wasn't dead when I came there, but he was not really doing well. He was head injury and other injuries. So I said he's probably not going to make it. And then 2 days later, I get a phone call. They said, "Are you Ellie Beer?" I said, "Yes." The man says, "My father was treated by you on Hapizga Street, and he woke up this morning in Hadassah Hospital." and we want to thank you for saving his life. And I think it was the best phone call I ever got. It was like winning the lottery. And I said, could I go over to visit him? And he said, yes, of course, we would love that. And I come there, and he's laying on his bed, and his family's around him, and he's very weak. And he says to me, "Boi na yeled, ani rotze lechabek otcha. Come here, child, I want to give you a hug." And he gave me the greatest hug I ever got. And he said in Hebrew, "Toda rabba she'etzalta oti." Thank you for saving me. And then I saw he had a number on his hand. Mm-hmm. And when I was looking at the number, I was like, I couldn't stop crying. I said, wow, I just saved this guy from something so simple. I was a plumber. The guy was bleeding. I put my yarmulke there. That's it. I didn't do anything. I didn't operate on him. I didn't do anything serious. I just stopped his bleeding. No one else did it because they didn't know what to do. I knew I just have to put pressure over that wound. And then the doctor comes into the room, and he says, he was seeing what's going on. He says, oh, you're the one who saved him. I said, I didn't know I saved him. I just stopped his bleeding. He says, well, this man was on Coumadin, which is a blood thinner. This is to prevent heart attacks from people.
So he was losing a lot of blood, probably.
He said he was losing so much blood that if he didn't stop his bleeding, he would have been dead in 2 minutes. And then he says to me, I'll give you a recommendation for your next one you want to save.
Get a bigger yarmulke.
He said, don't use the yarmulke.
I thought he was going to give you the yarmulke back.
He says, next time, you want to be a hero, buy a bandage. So
I have on you all the time?
Yes. I said, I'm going to.
Oh, okay.
I was so committed.
Yeah.
I bought a bag. I went ahead and I bought a bag of medical supplies. I put all the bags. I set it up really nice. I said, if I ever have anything like this again, I'll have not only gloves, proper gloves to wear for protection, and I'll have all the medical supplies I need. And then I bought an oxygen tank. And then I said to myself, things have to be, a better system. We need to have more of these bags, and then more. And then one day I said, wait, how am I going to get to emergencies that are further away from me? I can't run there so quick. I'm not in best shape. Maybe I'll buy a motorcycle, a little scooter,
right,
and put on the back of the scooter some medical supplies.
A tustus?
A tustus.
Okay. Wow.
A tustus. That's one of these Vespas. But that was just an idea. And my friend said to me, Ellie, they're going to kill you if you have a tustus and you put on medical. I said, I want to put a siren on it. Not only I'm putting it.
You have a lot of chutzpah.
Yeah, and my friend said, you have to get permission. No one did it in Israel before. No one did it anywhere around the world. I said, listen, in Israel, you don't ask for permission.
You just do things, yeah.
And then you ask for forgiveness, right? So that's the way to do things.
It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Exactly. If it's in a good, if
Husbands,
you're doing
do
something
not try
good.
that.
I don't recommend my kids to do anything like that. But it was so necessary to do this because to disrupt the system needed a real shake. It's not like they didn't care, but it was working for 50 years like that.
They didn't want to rock the boat.
Exactly. Why change things when you have everything okay? You have your employees, you have your ambulances, everything is good. And then a young kid comes and he says, and I got all my friends involved, and I got older people involved. And that's how we started. We started with a small group of people.
I imagine they didn't really view you as a threat off the bat,
I'll tell you, it was interesting. In the beginning, we used to pay off the dispatchers of Magen David Adom with, gifts for Mishloach Manas.
Also not illegal. Just
no gifts. You give them a Mishloach Manas, a beautiful
right.
gift. Say, listen, don't forget to announce the address really well, that we can hear it. Like when you say an address, don't say it like quick or something. We need to hear this. We're on a walkie-talkie. They started respecting us because we came. We're like it was like a group of frum young people that want to do this, and then other neighborhoods started, and different neighborhoods. Everyone started doing this, so they liked it because everyone was like giving them perks. You want to Shabbos comes before Shabbos, Chalas, this, that, and then you start building relationship. The big bosses didn't like it. I remember the big bosses going crazy because this is like, what are these guys doing?
Right.
This is our.
Did at some point, I imagine it continued to grow, naturally, as any great idea will usually do. At some point, I imagine you had to have some sort of licenses and permits to be able to operate.
So for years, we didn't have any licenses. We just operated. You know, we showed up in every event. Every event we would show up.
And just
with orange vests, we came officially. We had sirens. No one could stop us.
That's so amazing.
We just did it because this is the way to do it. We didn't have the government officials come to say, here, this is good, you could do it. We had the police with us. Even so, we were doing everything illegal. I mean, not illegal. It wasn't legal.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Great.
Like,
it was just not, it wasn't.
it wasn't, by the way, EMTs in Israel are not legal. EMTs, emergency medical technician. Here in America, the state issues
Licenses, yeah.
because of the monopoly that they had in the system, with a lot of monopolies in Israel. The phone, a lot of monopolies, including the ambulance services, were monopolies. The government never issued a formal law about creating EMTs in Israel or paramedics.
So it was just the companies.
You know, it was only the Magen David Adom.
Right.
You only could do it through them. We had to break regulations to create new ones. The Ambu-cycle is a great idea. We were the first ones that came to the government after many years. Said, now we want to officially make it formal.
Turn this Tostas into a real
Ambu-cycle.
And this is the Batman. This is your Batmobile, your Bat bike or whatever.
Yeah.
The Batmobile, that's fine.
You know, and the Ambu-cycle.
Bat-balance.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's
Ambu-cycle sounds cooler, actually. But
Glad you went with Ambu-cycle.
if I saw correctly, it's one of the biggest innovations to come out of Israel.
It is, definitely. It's such a simple idea. It's so simple that it's like ridiculous that no one ever thought about doing this before. And I go speak about it in many places around the world. And they said,
You gained a lot of recognition. You had a TED Talk, which is extremely popular with millions of views, speaking about this concept. So it was not just an exclusively from or Jewish innovation. This was an innovation that was recognized globally.
definitely, I want United Hatzalah because of how it's built. And that's also a very unique thing in Israel. I want United Hatzalah to do a very big Kiddush Hashem. Not only saving lives, actually creating the fact that in Israel it started by frum Jews. Today we have non-frum Jews volunteering. We have Arabs volunteering in United Hatzalah with Jews together. Jews from Judea and Samaria, settlers like they're called, are volunteering with Arab volunteers in the villages nearby them and saving lives together. And that's something that when I speak about it in India, or I speak about it in many countries around the world, they can't believe this thing exists. In Israel, they always think it's wars between people. In the end of the day, my mother is 92. If God forbid, chas v'shalom, something happens to her, I don't care who saves her. I want someone to be there in 90 seconds. So that's the idea. And then one day, my father had a heart attack on Shabbos. And this is years after I started this. And my father collapsed on the floor Shabbos afternoon. I had a volunteer across the street that came immediately. I was there. I was crying. I didn't know what to do.
Right, you're shocked.
And who shows up? An Arab volunteer of United Hatzalah. And he says, Ellie, I'm here to help you. I didn't even know his name. Afterwards, I got to know him. He was one of the first ones who joined. And he had a defibrillator with him, shocked my father. My father's life came back. And that was the idea. No brain damage, no nothing. We were there so fast. So when I created this, it wasn't only about saving lives in Israel. I want more and more people around the world to hear about this. I know every Jewish community in New York and many other countries around the world have Hatzalah. Wonderful guys. Wonderful concept. But the idea and the message we have as United Hatzalah is to bring this to the world also, to show the world at least what we're doing so they could copy it.
We'll be right back to this episode of the Meaningful People podcast with Ellie Beer. But first, the weather is changing. It's getting colder. I know you don't want to hear that. You want to just stay warm and cozy and wear your polo shirts and all that jazz. But it's getting colder, and maybe you were sitting in the sukkah, or maybe you're going out and you like, oh, it's not that cold. But now your nose is stuffed. You get that nasal drip.
Oh, I was gonna say, there is no real medication for a cold, but there's medications for the flu and strep and there's a lot of medications out there. We're not doctors, but we know enough to prescribe to you AMR Pharmacy.
So give them a call, 848-222-1110, or head to AMR Farm. That's PHARMRX.
No matter where you are, in New York, New Jersey.
They bring it straight to your door.
Bring it to you. It's so easy, guys and girls. One of our favorite people, Shmuel Sackett from The Dream Raffle, not Dream Raffle, The Dream Raffle.
.com.
Sounds even better. And you started, like, people are buying left and right. I know Nafi,
this
like,
promo code is
taking
just,
out a lot of money to buy somebody. His wife's like, what are you doing?
I mortgaged my house.
Well, you could get an apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's thedreamraffle.com, and there's one prize, and that's $1 million apartment in Yerushalayim overlooking Har HaBayit. So it's a luxury apartment. It's beautiful. It's about 3 blocks away from the new U.S. Embassy. Wow. It's a great, great prize. And all you have to do is put in the code MPP, Meaningful People Podcast, and in addition to doubling your tickets, right? If you buy one, we'll give you 2, 5 gets you 10, and so on. We'll also take $10 off. So it's a great, great thing. And this year, the money is primarily going to help Israeli farmers that are keeping Shemitah. In addition to other things out, we also help teens at risk. We help the K-9 unit that is involved in search and rescue, finding missing Jews. Fantastic, fantastic. All the funds go to tzedakah. There's nobody on salary. There's nobody on commission. This is what the money goes for. And it's, again, thedreamraffle.com. Put in code MPP.
It's amazing. People got to just think about investing in Mashiach. If you really believe Mashiach is coming anytime, you want a place overlooking the Har HaBayit, it's good real estate, buy a ticket.
And even if you don't have as much emunah and bitachon as that, you still get an apartment in Israel in a gorgeous location.
So whether you're a ruchniistic person or gashmius.
Well, like I said, you could also take the cash alternative.
Right.
The guy who won last year,
If you're really...
right, Mayor Reichman from West Orange, New Jersey.
Good for him.
personal reasons, he took the cash alternative, and that's fine. It's 100% available as that option, and whatever's good for you.
$500,000.
That's correct. $500,000
Nah,
cash.
which one would you do if you could?
Nach is going for the apartment. There's
Yeah,
no
I
question.
I think so.
I think I'd also go for the apartment.
Like that's something that you just can't turn down. Overlooking the Har HaBayit, like
Isn't that a great decision you'll have to make?
You know what I
Yeah.
love about this type of stuff is like obviously you could you speak to the local Rav, but you could use your Meiser, and it's the type of thing that like I'm not like debating should I buy an apartment in Israel or not. Like this is the once in a lifetime opportunity.
exactly.
And
A lot of people who I knew that bought tickets. A lot of families said like, this is my chance of getting a place in Israel. This raffle. I remember I was watching the drawing live.
Right.
And Mayor
That's
Reichman, I'm sorry, Mayor, I hated you for like 15 seconds.
But
when
then you heard
won.
that he
But then
saw it, yeah.
but like I was like, are you kidding me? But good for him.
Yeah.
And I hope I win. I'm
This is
not
the fourth
scared to-
year. This is
Yeah.
the fourth year of the
I
raffle.
hope everyone's like forgives me if I win.
It will look a little staged if you win.
I'm sorry.
But chances are, there's so many people listening. Please, people, everyone buy a ticket. And I want you to say, yeah, I listened to Meaningful People and I won.
Just use promo code MPP, head to thedreamraffle.com, and maybe you'll win.
B'hatzlacha, Am Yisrael Chai.
And now back to the episode. I think you're very successful, and United Hatzalah is so successful because you kind of do away with any like politics that could come into it. Like you do away, like only from we have non-from, it could be men, women, it could be someone who's an Arab, someone who's a Jew. It doesn't make a difference. Like the goal is to help people, and let's get together. I guess that's why United is in the words there to like help people. It's really it.
Exactly, and I really think that's one of the greatest accomplishments of this organization. In 2006,
Yes.
I'm here.
I know. I'm like, I've never choked in any episode.
I'm like trying to like continue on now. He's like coughing in the
By
background.
the way, if anyone's coughing,
Yeah.
he's not choking.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's actually a good thing. If you wouldn't have coughed, I would be worried. I saved many people from choking. Trust me, I wasn't worried.
Do you understand the PR we'd get? He was choking during the episode, and you saved him for us who'd get PR. United
Yeah,
Hatzalah
but
would get
AMR
PR.
would get terrible PR though.
That's just water.
Came out of their cup,
Their
yeah.
cup. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually think that the fact that United Hatzalah brings diversity into one organization, and the fact that we have from Jews, we have Haredi volunteers from Mea Shearim driving around saving Arab Jewish people, but you have Arabs coming into Mea Shearim. It brings something special, and I think when I went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky, he's still our biggest advocate in terms of bringing non-from people into Hatzalah. And he said, Ellie, you could do first of all Hatzalas Nefashas, saving lives. Herzliya needs saving lives the same way Bnei Brak needs saving lives. But the fact that you do a Kiddush Hashem is something special. And the different types of people. If I bring 100 people to a room, every single person will be so different that if they weren't in the United Hatzalah, they would not want to have anything to do with each other. 100 different people. Could be one be visionists of this and visionists of this, but it could be one secular, one frum, one dati lomi, and one extra Haredi, and one Arab, and one settler, and many others. And it could be a plumber and a very successful businessman working together and saving lives and loving each other and getting connected.
Wow.
So I want to speak a little bit about, I guess, if you could tell us a little bit, numbers-wise, what does United Hatzalah look like today? Volunteers and, calls per year. Like, what's that like?
So yesterday we went out to 1,975 calls.
Yesterday?
Just yesterday. Just yesterday.
Oh, my gosh.
Almost 2,000 calls a day throughout the whole country.
How many volunteers do you have?
6,500 volunteers.
Wow.
And every call has 2 or 3 volunteers.
Does every volunteer have an Ambu-cycle?
No, we have 1,150 Ambu-cycles now. We just got 150 Ambu-cycles dedicated by Sheldon and Miriam Adelson.
Yeah.
They are very involved, but it was something we were supposed to do a year ago. Unfortunately, he passed away.
Right.
So Miriam was there. We have 50 ambulances. We're the only emergency ambulances that give free service to the patients. Like here, like Hatzalah here, Hatzalah in Israel,
cost, yeah.
we don't charge for anything of emergency services. So if someone needs to get to the hospital in an emergency way, if we have an ambulance available, we will take them for no cost.
As much as you can, if you can speak a little bit about, having so many volunteers and, you're the leader. A lot of the responsibility falls on your shoulders. Take an event that happened, for example, in Meron, and you have so many members of Hatzalah that were there and helping people. It's a traumatic event. And you have a lot of young people afterwards that were, part of Hatzalah that were going through hell, just dealing with what they saw. How do you deal with that? And in Israel, this, hope Baruch Hashem doesn't happen too often nowadays with attacks and in these scary sites. But how do you deal with that?
It's an amazing question. Thank you for bringing it up. That was probably the hardest situation the organization ever been through. No one expected such a big tragedy to happen there. We always thought something will happen every year, but nothing like this. And while you're working, you don't think about it. It just starts coming up a few minutes after everything is quiet. When the place was evacuated and all the patients were out, we had 45 people were killed there, and then we had almost 200 people injured. Getting all these people to the hospitals, and then you find out what exactly happened. Because I had one volunteer who did CPR on 11 people, mostly young. 11 people. You never do CPR in a week on 11 people. In 1 minute, in like 120, in a period of an hour, 11 people. And then the doctor says, our doctor is going, our paramedic, leave him alone, cover him, leave him alone. Like, we're just going from 1 to 1. And then when everything finished, you see the burst out of pain that everyone had. It was something I never saw before, and it took a long time to deal with it. A month after Meron, we actually decided to do something very special to bring all the volunteers that were there, only them, because we have 6,500, right. So we had 300 volunteers there in Meron. Bring them there and do like a special evening with them. It was in Shloshim, and we did like a song that was written by Shragi
Stetner.
Stetner, and we taught the volunteers. So I didn't know that song before, but it's a very hard song. It's like Yiddish accent. Yeah, Kirachem Alabanim, and we had to sing it like 100 times to get it right. And we were all sitting around, and I don't know if you saw that.
You guys you're sitting on the stairs. You're sitting in that place.
In the same exact place where we put all the unfortunately people who passed away. Our center of Hatzalah of Meron is right where it happened. We saw everything. We had a volunteer who was there in the between. He almost got killed himself in the first minute. It took took us 2 or 3 minutes to understand what was going on, because it was so. These things happen every year, but nothing ends up this way. Every year it looks the same.
Right. Just tons of people.
Tons of people pushing, and you can't have control over that mess. But then dealing, and I remember that night taking one of our volunteers from Haifa, a Chassidish volunteer. He was laying on the floor. I couldn't get him to get up. He was crying like a child. And for a half hour, he's on the floor crying. He was 1 month since that night in bed. He didn't want to come back to Meron. And we forced him, our volunteers went to the house, pushed him out of his house. Because he was traumatized. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, just laying in bed for a month. And we forced him to come, and he was there. And I was crying with him on the floor. I lay down next to him and just was hugging him. And we tried everything. And I said to him, you know, the responsibilities that we have wearing these vests can't allow us to fall into these deep depressions. We have a responsibility. Regular people are allowed. You are not a regular person. The minute you wore this orange vest, now you have to work like a machine. You could cry, you could let go a little of the steam and everything, but you have to know that people's lives depend upon you. Your neighbor may be choking, and you're going to be crying in bed and not saving him. And I gave him the whole smooth of the responsibilities of a United Hatzalah volunteer. And can you imagine the chief of staff of Israel? I said to him, the head of the army is crying because 50 soldiers died and he doesn't want to go out of bed. How could you have a chief of staff like that? Once you're the chief of staff, once you're a soldier, you know people die. And he got up, and we got him sitting down, and he sang the song with us. Wow. And he came over to me afterwards. He was one example of many others. And he said, Ellie, you saved my life. And I don't know how I had the courage to do it. I was just crying with him. But then I said, okay, we finished crying. Now we have to go back to business.
It's so ironic that you saved lives, but this guy's telling you in a different way how you saved his life, how like he could move on.
His wife was worried that she lost her husband. She told me, Ellie, I thought I lost him. He was 30 days in bed.
Is there like something clinical that, you know, United Hatzalah offers for these volunteers, like afterwards, a debriefing, something that, you know, they walk away from this, it's, I'm sure in a professional way, there's something that, you know, has to be done for them.
So it's really amazing. We started about 10 years ago a psychotrauma professional unit to deal with these kind of things 10 years ago. Not only for ourselves, but for others.
Right.
People at Meron was a big tragedy for hundreds of people, maybe thousands. And we said every time we have these events, I used to see terror attacks coming into a bus blown up and maybe 80 people injured, physically injured. What about 150 that were around the bus or not injured, or in the bus were not injured, but they're emotionally injured? And these people were just left behind. They were left behind. They were not injured. And they came to the hospital sometimes and they just said, okay, you're fine, go home. And they had to cope with this terrible disaster that they saw. And many of them developed post-traumatic stress and other disorders, and they were literally, life was changed for them forever. So we said, how can we prevent it? We have already the manpower. We're already there. Why don't we switch hats and become, instead of the paramedics, the mental support? Yeah. And we trained our people for months. We have now, I think, 750 people who are trained for this. Every event in Israel that we have, they deal with it. They were dealing with our own volunteers that went through this, and sometimes every single day we have these incidents that our volunteers need help. But the families, talking about an accident that happened in Beit Shemesh where a father was walking with his son, and a bus killed his son in front of his eyes, and all the schools saw that. And it was a tragedy that dozens of kids saw it happen. Every one of the kids needed help. And we send 50 volunteers that are in the psychotrauma unit to be there. And the last big incident we went to was actually in Miami, in Surfside, where everyone was worried about saving physical lives or getting people out. We send the psychotrauma unit that experts, psychologists, children's psychologists. They left their jobs. These are all working people who flew to Miami to be in with the people. We flew together with the Israeli soldiers that night, and they were helping the Israeli soldiers when they were interviewing people, because the Israeli soldiers were doing the mapping of the buildings. While they were talking to people were crying. They needed help. The soldiers are not professional and emotional help, so our volunteers were with them, helping, talking to the families. And a lot of families that I spoke to later said that it made a very big difference. Not in the results, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, a lot of people died, but helping them cope with it
emotionally, right?
How do you deal with it? Meaning you're more than one, volunteer. You're probably involved with every big situation that's happening. You have to, deal with that.
And to add on to that question, do you ever meet him before?
No.
I never met you, and you seem like a very soft and emotionally intelligent person. So amplifying Nachi's question, you seem like a softie, if I could say so.
So, well, I learned over the years that to talk about everything. I cry a lot. And I talk about everything. So never keep anything in the stomach. Everything you see here is food. I don't keep any emotionals, because, I used to come back from terrible events and come home and talk to my wife and kids about this. And I saw children, blown up to pieces. And I talked about it. And I realized that if you talk to people, they also get immune. People who always keep things away from them, or if they saw something bad, they don't want to talk about it. Eventually it's going to come back to them. And I think, first of all, as someone who has to lead the organization, I can't afford to put my life into to destroy my own life. I need to make sure I'm strong. I can allow myself, like you say, right, to be in a situation like this. If you remember when I was personally sick and I was dying,
which we want to talk about, if you
and this connects, because you could ask me about that, because that connects really. I never let people think, oh, I just send out a video. It was really helping myself.
Could you, the people who don't know, could you explain what happened and take us through those events?
So I was traveling, like I always do. I travel 200 days a year. My kids call me Avinu Shabashamayim. And I talk to my kids when I'm on the plane from WhatsApp all the time. I got to Miami after traveling that month to 5 or 6 different countries and many cities besides that. And then I got to Miami from London, and a few days before in APAC, and then a few days before that in India. But India had nothing to do with it. They didn't have COVID then. So it was really a lot of traveling that month. So I was tired physically also. But I'm a healthy guy. I never had any medical situation. And I all of a sudden felt fever. This is a week after APAC, so I don't think it was exactly from there, but I was surrounding with a lot of people. I was in shul in Miami, and I was, everything was normal then.
This is when, March 2020?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Purim came. We had a great time. My children, 2 of my daughters came into Miami to meet me there. One has had a bat mitzvah, and the other one was getting married, so it was a good opportunity to spend time with both. And they wanted a costume, so we went to buy Superman's costume. That was the only one left.
You're very into superheroes, okay.
So,
got Spider-Man mentioned, Batman, Superman.
Yeah.
And Hatzalah, man.
And there you go. I like that.
So, day after, I felt fever, and I said, I have to right away isolate myself. I never had fever. So I sent my kids right away to Israel. I said, maybe, I don't know what's coming up. And we checked ourselves. We went to a doctor, actually, and everyone was fine. I thought I have something, maybe strep throat or something. I didn't know what it was. They didn't even have COVID tests.
Wow.
So I ended up quarantining for 5 days, and I didn't feel well. I couldn't breathe. I have a doctor, a friend of mine, Zevi Newworth from Miami. He's a Hatzalah volunteer too. He said, go straight to the hospital. I went. They didn't even have people in the hospital. It was empty. And they say to me, the first thing they checked me, and they said, you're going straight to the ICU. I said, ICU? Can't you just put me in a regular department? They said, no, you're going to the ICU, COVID ICU. My heart stopped beating, like COVID ICU, and like I'm always bringing people to the ICU, and now I'm going into ICU. And then 5 days later, couldn't handle the breathing anymore. 3 days later, I think it was, the doctor said we have to induce you into coma. And
What went through your head at that when you said that?
What's that?
I said, this is it. The doctors were so friendly to me. They were amazing. And I said to them, what's my chances of survival? They didn't know. So I started checking on the internet to see what's going on in Europe, because Spain was going through a terrible situation.
Yeah.
And Italy. China, no one really knew what was going on because they hide all the information.
We'll find out. Don't worry. We'll find out.
So the doctors actually said, according to what we see in Spain and in Italy, you have a 5% chance of survival. That's what we see there. We don't know what's going to be here. So I called my kids to say goodbye. I called my children, I called my wife, I called everyone, said goodbye. I left a will, everything.
You thought you're going to die.
Yeah. I was sure. I prepared.
Were you at peace with it, or?
At some point, look, I would rather not to, but
but like emotionally, like how were you not like freaking out, or maybe you didn't?
I didn't
have the
freak
energy?
out. I'm a very calm man. I go through a lot in my life.
Okay.
I go through.
But this is the biggest. What
This
could
is
be
the
bigger?
biggest, but I was peaceful because I did a lot of my life.
Mm.
I said, okay, this is it. I said to Hashem, I still have plans to help your children here and to continue my work. But if this is it, this is it. I said,
Did you physically feel like you were dying? I mean, I understand the seeing that you're being sent to the ICU and the doctor saying what they were saying and what's going on, but physically, you were feeling like this is just.
I'll make you understand what I went through. Okay.
Yeah, please do.
I see you have a phone on you. You probably are connected to a 24/6, right?
Nachi has like 2 or 3 phones. Just point that out.
Okay, 24/6. You need to make a very important phone call, and you have 0 reception. What do? You restart your phone.
Yeah.
You look for every corner around. You go to the corner of the window. You take your head out of the window. You need to make that important phone. You need a reception. For 3 days, you can't find reception. You go out of your mind, right? You finally give up. I'm 3 days trying to breathe and get reception into my lungs. That's how I felt. Nothing. I'm breathing, but it's not going into my lungs. It's going into my lungs, but not getting in because of my terrible pneumonia that came because of the COVID. And I realized that moment, COVID is real. We didn't think COVID was real. We were preparing for it in Israel, and
we thought it was there and there and there.
Yeah, China. Okay, they had SARS. The Chinese usually have so many things going on there. It never reaches here. And I said to myself, after 3 days, that I'm fighting for air, and I'm getting air in my lungs, but it's not. I don't have reception. I said, this is it. Okay, the doctors say we need to intubate you. They actually made me sign that if they need to trach me. And they asked me who's the one making the decisions if we have to unplug you. I was very realistic with them. I go through so much. I said, listen, I gave a friend of mine, Joel Sandberg. I said, Joel Sandberg will be in charge of my health. And whatever he says, if you want to, because I knew eventually they're not going to have any ventilators left. If I'm getting sick like this, who knows how many more are going to come.
Right.
And I didn't think I'll wake up, and I said goodbye, and I sent out a video to everyone. I want you to continue supporting Hatzalah, because I was worried, because people support people. Mm. Most of the support comes from people who them personal.
Right.
And what's going to be with these people? I want Hatzalah to continue. United Hatzalah has to stay forever. I said, please continue, even if I'm not alive. And that was my message.
And then you closed your eyes and you were intubated.
I closed my eyes and I told the doctor, pray for me. He told me I'm an atheist. I said, so do a chesed for me. I explained him what chesed is, a good deed, an extra one. I know you do good deeds, but do an extra one. He was a good man. And then that was it. I told everyone, do good deeds for me, do chesed. and woke up in the hospital a month later.
Did you recognize what occurred, or were you very out of it when you woke up?
I was traumatized when I woke up. I think I woke up in a panic attack.
Really?
You have to understand, a month, I didn't know how long, I didn't know where I was.
At what point? I mean, I imagine you didn't know right away it was a month, right?
I didn't know anything. I was
So
like, I'm laying
wake
there.
up. Yeah.
I have pipes in my nose, pipes coming into my mouth. They wake me up. I see people wearing white,
Like hazmat suits.
hazmat
You
suits.
thought you were on Mars. Yeah.
And I saw it before, but everything was like, you have a lot of medications.
You weren't
know.
like, oh my God, I'm alive?
No, I didn't know where I was.
Did you know who you were?
I didn't. If they asked me, the doctors, do you know who you are? And I said, yes. What's your name? I think I said Ellie.
Okay.
I think I did. I don't remember. But then they said, you know where you are? And I had a dream. I had a terrible, terrible dream, like a real reality dream that I was in a hospital in Switzerland. So in my dream, I got injured in Switzerland in one of our rescue missions, Hatzalah rescue mission there. And I was trying to save a child from drowning. And I fell into the river. And I got rescued. And I knew I was in a hospital, but not for this.
Right.
And then they said, they said, you know where you are? I said, yeah, in a hospital. They said, good. You know which one? I said, in Switzerland.
You're like, oh man.
And they said, Switzerland, try again. And I'm looking out of the window. I don't know where I am. I couldn't remember. And they said, you're in Miami. I said, how did I get to Miami? And they said to me, you're in Miami. You're not in Switzerland. I said, I need to speak to my wife.
You still don't know that it's been a month.
I didn't know nothing. They didn't
Wow.
explain. They didn't have time.
They
Right.
can't, they can't drop that
Don't
bomb
forget,
on
people
you.
are screaming in the other room trying to breathe. It
Things
was
were
like
getting
it was
worse
a
with
chaos.
COVID during that month.
Yeah, I
later
was like,
after.
it was a chaos going on. So they were happy when I woke up, and then some doctors had to leave right away, you know? So I'm like, they give me the phone. They can't reach my wife, Gitti. She's a volunteer at Hatzalah. She was delivering a baby with my daughter of a neighbor who was giving birth, waiting for an ambulance. And they ran out to save this woman, and they couldn't answer. So I'm like, we can't reach your wife. Okay, I'm waiting another
Sleeping for a month.
Finally, they get on the phone. She starts crying, my wife. The first thing I say to her, listen, in Hebrew, I said to her in Hebrew, call the FBI. She says, what are you talking about?
Oh, no.
I said, and this is the first time I'm talking to her. I said, listen, they kidnapped me. They say I'm in Miami.
Oh gosh, your poor wife. For a month, she thinks you're gonna die. You wake up and you sound.
She thought I'm joking.
Oh, okay. A few.
Because I do have a sense of humor.
Got it.
And she says, Ellie, she starts laughing. I said, you're laughing? I was kidnapped. They're going to kill me soon, and you're going to laugh? And she thought thought I was joking. And I'm at a highly talk. I have machines. I have pipes in me. And I said to her, listen, if you don't call the FBI, I'm gonna jump out of the window and get an Uber. I didn't know where I was. I was so confused. And she realized I'm in some kind of stress. Look, I woke up. No one explained where I was.
Right.
You know how long it was. You just felt, and you had these pipes and everything. You don't remember being...
She has this dream that seems so real.
Did you remember
Yeah.
being intubated, or...
It took me time to remember because I didn't even know where I was.
Right.
And then I started thinking everyone wants to kill me here. And I said to her, if they know I'm Jewish, they're going to kill me.
That's
Wow.
scary.
And for 2 or 3 days, I couldn't sleep. I was scared. Don't forget, I didn't have strength to talk on the phone. I didn't open my own phone. I didn't go back to reality. I didn't remember if I have my phone, if I have a Waze. And I was tied to the wind. They tied me.
Really?
Yeah, because you still have pipes there, and they're afraid
Right,
they're going to pull out.
pull it out.
So everything made sense that I was in these delusions.
Right.
And I was actually building a story of how I was kidnapped, how I was brought, and everything. And then my wife thought, okay, she lost me. I'm dead.
Wow.
Brain dead, yeah. Brain dead, yeah. So, and then a nurse, a doctor, amazing woman, she comes into the room, and sees me, and she was for sure not Jewish, but she had a Star of David on her. And I look at her, and she looked from South America somewhere, and I said to her, "You're Jewish?" She says, yeah, I feel Jewish. I said, you need to save me. And Maria, her name was, Maria. She says, what could I do to help you? I said, they want to kill me. I need you to rescue me before they find out I'm Jewish too. I really thought I'm talking to
Make a great movie, by the way.
Yeah.
You should go into film writing.
And I'm saying this story because the reason I'm sharing this is because so many other people have it when they wake up from coma, and they don't talk about it.
Well, and we'll
they
get to
suffer.
that, but I want to continue this Maria.
Maria took my hand. She sat down next to me, looked in my eyes, hold my hand, and she started talking to me softly and said, Eliezer Beer, Ellie Beer, I know who you are. I saw your TED Talk. I know about United Hatzalah. You do amazing work. I was your doctor together with other doctors here. You weren't kidnapped. She started telling me the whole. I started crying. She said, you came here yourself when you didn't feel well, 45 days ago or something, or 40 days, whatever it was. And she started telling me, and like, she starts talking to me like a human being, and I started crying. And she's crying, really. She was crying. And I couldn't believe the whole story. It was true. And I realized that whatever she's telling me is the truth. And she said, we were fighting for your life. You have no idea how many people were praying for you. She brought me back to reality.
Wow.
And then you realized 40 plus days you were...
Yeah. I was like shocked. And she said, I prayed for you. Everyone prayed for you. The doctors prayed for you. And she said, you have no idea how many people are calling here every day for you. We thought you're the president of Israel in the beginning, she said. And I said to her, I didn't remember. She said, do you remember you came downstairs to a they had like a tent, and they checked you, and I started, everything came back to me. And that's when I came back to full reality. Full. She snapped me out of it. And I said, I have to go back to Israel. But I was so depressed because I couldn't walk.
You were like completely, your body was, you had to go through rehab.
Yeah. And I had a really, really bad experience. I said, because I couldn't walk to the bathroom. I was...
Were you scared that you're going to be, your body was damaged for the rest of your life, or?
Definitely, because I never experienced being in a coma.
Right.
And you lose, you have to go to the gym if you want to be a good, you have to walk. If you lay down flat, not moving for 30 days.
Even when I wake up a few hours, like my body's sore. So Kal v'chomer.
Really?
Yeah.
Every day for a few hours, your body's
No.
sore?
When I sleep for a few hours, I wake up, my body is sore.
Really?
Yeah.
Every time you sleep?
Nachi, when you get to my age, you will see. I'm like 3 years old now.
That's not normal, right? Every time you
Listen,
sleep?
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
By the way, your body rebuilds itself when you're sleeping.
Right.
When you're laying flat, you're not moving your fingers. You can't close your fingers.
I understand if someone, that's why,
Someone sleeps for 14 hours, by the way. You speak a long sleep. You start some of your... some people love sleeping
You have a
long.
kid, though. When was the last time you slept 14 hours?
No, but even a few hours. When you wake up in the morning, you're a little groggy. You have to stretch.
Yeah,
you know?
I hear.
So
Yeah.
do that for 30 days
Also,
straight.
You
So,
can't
yeah.
just stretch. You
Yeah.
can't
Right.
stretch after 30 days. You can move.
Surprised
So-
you could even talk.
Right.
Barely.
Yeah.
But were you feeling okay? Like, were you feeling like the effects of COVID were you were able to breathe?
So I don't remember how I felt physically. I was mostly emotionally. That was my biggest problem, emotionally waking up. It was a process, which I recommended afterwards, and I wrote about it. One of the things I did is speak to the heads of the hospital and the Miami University of Miami, wonderful hospital that helped me a lot. I said, when you wake up someone after an induced coma where that person gets so much medication and then you wake him up, you need to have a psychologist with
Yeah.
that person. They don't do that because they're medical people. They don't
Right.
realize the emotional trauma people going through. Thank God I'm out of it, and it took me a few days. And by the way, a lot of people go get help afterwards.
Right. As they should.
Yeah, they should, definitely, because it's going through a really bad process. And I couldn't get up. And I said, okay, I'm just going to stay here for a couple of months in the hospital till I eventually get up. And then I got a phone call from Israel. They said, Ellie, we all did chesed for you. Hatzalah, we went out to every emergency that had to do with medical emergency, but we started getting phone calls from people for just regular help. They didn't know who to turn to. For a bulb to change bulbs. Older people couldn't change their own bulbs. They couldn't get anyone to do it for them. So Hatzalah volunteers started responding to humanitarian help. This is all in your zechut, in your merit. And they said to me, Ellie, you have to come back to see what we did because of you. We went out to 62,000 emergencies that are not medical. Just people who called us day and night. People for anything, shopping for them. I said, give me one story. And I said, one story that would help me cope with what I'm going through, because I was really going through a lot. They said 5 minutes before Pesach, a 90-year-old lady calls and she starts crying, saved my life. What happened to you? She said, I don't have candles to light for Pesach. Could you send someone to give me candles? They send out the call right away. An Arab Hatzalah volunteer from Jaffa, she lived in Bat Yam, goes to a little makolet, a little supermarket in Yafo, and he buys candles, and he buys her a bouquet of flowers, and he drives over to this woman's home, a Jewish woman on the top floor of a building, opens the door. She starts crying when she sees him. She says, you saved my life. Thank you for the... She didn't care about the flowers. And he sees that she's a Holocaust survivor. Right away he saw. So he was like emotionally moved. And he said, he just waited there until she finished lighting 15 candles. And he said to her, what did you say that I saved your life? And why did you light so many candles? So she said to him that since I'm a child, I grew up with my mother in Europe. I never missed a Shabbos or a Yontif not lighting candles with my mother. But when I was sent to a concentration camp, I lost my parents. Never saw them again, lost my family. I used to take a little piece of paper or a little piece of wood and light it just to have a Shabbat candle, even for a few seconds. Never missed one Shabbat in the concentration camps. And I came to Israel. I was liberated, never had a family, but I lit for every family member of mine 15 candles for each one of the members who were killed by the Nazis, murdered by the Nazis. And this week was the first week since I came to Israel. I couldn't go shopping for a few weeks, that I was missing candles. And I said to myself, if I have to go back to lighting a piece of wood instead of a real candle, this is my last day of my life. So I decided to call United Hatzalah. And I said, they save lives. I'm going to call them for help. You were here before. I had a heart attack. You came. So I said, maybe you'll come and help me. And you came within a few minutes. You came and gave me the candles. She said, you saved my life. When I heard that story, I said, I'm coming back.
And then how long was it until you went back?
I think the doctors were shocked. They said, I'm going to have to stay a couple of weeks. For every day in a coma, you have 6 days recovery.
Oh, my gosh.
And 6 days of rehab and physiotherapy and everything. I was on a plane 5 days later with a doctor and a paramedic, Simcha Shein.
Oh, nice, yeah.
What was it like landing back in Israel?
Landing in Israel was incredible. I actually was shocked. The airport, I landed in Israel hundreds of times. I never saw the airport like Yom Kippur. No plane, all the planes, the Al Al planes were all gathered together. I was like shocked. All the Al Al planes in one area. No other planes, Arkia and Israel and stuff, but no other planes in the airport. And I'm landing, and 1,000 Hatzalah volunteers waiting for me with my family to see everyone there. And I thought it was my funeral. Actually, it was like, what's going on here? Like, it looked like it was amazing to come back and get everyone just to say hello to me. They couldn't get close. They were still scared.
When you found out sort of that when did it dawn upon you that you missed Pesach, right? You were sleeping. That must have been very trippy.
Pesach was one of the worst feelings to miss Pesach. I never missed a holiday with my family. You know, it's like part of the thing. I travel around the world. I do incredible things, meeting people and everything. But Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, I'm home.
If you think about what your family must have been going through, it's also extremely difficult. The fact, meaning, you were in a coma. You were in Switzerland doing a rescue mission, but your family was sitting there without you.
Afterwards, I found out what was going on. Gitti and the kids were giving out food to 75 Holocaust survivors who had no food at home. So that day they cooked for 75 family food, and in boxes, and they were just with a Hatzalah ambulance giving it out from door to door, dressed with the whole thing. They said they want to do that before Pesach. So they came back home when Pesach came in. So that's when they started cooking. And then they had a whole fight break out between my children. I have 5 kids, 1 boy, and 4 girls. And my daughter wanted to put a picture of me where my seat is. And my son was fighting against that. He said, no, that's like a sign of a dead person.
Yeah, that's I would think that also.
Yeah.
So,
You're still around. You don't need to see that picture.
so they were like very emotional about that. They finally put the picture, because 4 girls against 1 boy. And they tried doing a Pesach, but my wife was so tired. So when my son stole that fikoma, and that's what he loves doing, and he started, I want this. She said, okay, you'll get it. And he got so upset because he loves the negotiations with me. I negotiate. I just don't give up. For him, it's part of the thing. So it was a very bad night for them. It wasn't a nice Pesach for them. It was not nice for me either. So when I heard about what was going on there, I was broken. My heart was broken that I missed Pesach. And I said, I have to do a Pesach Sheni.
Right.
And you did.
It was unbelievable, yeah.
So what you had like kind of a Pesach Seder again by Pesach Sheni?
Not again. It's
Not
my-
again.
Whatever, I'm saying instead. No, Pesach Sheni typically it's like in yeshiva, it's like, oh, don't forget, make hamaitzi on matzah. You know, that's typically
Yeah.
the
That's what I
average
did.
Pesach
Your Pesach
Sheni.
Sheni was Pesach?
It was a real Pesach. I actually, we did the bdikas chametz. We brought good wine. It was my first time I drank wine since I was in the hospital. And we had the whole thing. Food. We really did the whole meal, the whole agada, without Shem Hashem, but we did the whole thing. And it was just amazing, going through the whole thing, afikoman, negotiations, everything.
That's amazing. Question that I have is, we're going to get to like our fun questions, but someone who wants to join Hatzalah, and I'm sure there's a lot, what do you recommend? Like, first of all, should everyone be joining Hatzalah? And those that should be joining, what are the qualities that you think are most important?
So I think, first of all, there is a lot of Hatzalahs around the world. We're Israel. We're United Hatzalah of Israel. So they have to speak to the coordinators of the Hatzalah in their area, see if they have a need, because you don't need to have every person Hatzalah. It doesn't make sense. Also, resources, We try putting enough people in the neighborhood that we'll have a 90-second response, but if you have a 20-second response, that's not good. You need a 90-second response. A 20-second response means every second person is Hatzalah. So you need to have some kind of calculation. It's like Uber, right? Think about Uber.
If they had too many people, you'd have fights.
You have fights. You have people want to go out to calls, but you can't have too many.
Right, it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable, and it doesn't make sense. So we always reject people. I get people calling me. I had one volunteer who wanted to go into United Hatzalah in Bnei Brak, and we have too many volunteers in Bnei Brak. So for 2 years, he was trying to get in, and finally he moved to Ramat Gan with his whole family. He moved to Ramat Gan because he knew we need volunteers there. So it's basically according to where you live. I think that the most important quality of Hatzalah is not how smart you are, is how much you care about other people. I mean, I say this when they have, when they interview people for medical school. And I know a lot of medical schools around the world, and I say this should be the first question check. They should have a test to see what kind of person you are. Look in your eyes. Look at the guy's eyes. See what kind of person he is. Does he really care about other people's? Because a lot of people want to be a doctor. It's a good thing. But they don't really care about other people. They're not going to get up 6 o'clock in the morning for someone if they need help, or 3 o'clock in the morning. They're not going to... you need to have an neshama for this. This is a special one, and this, I think, is the most important quality of the organization.
That's really nice.
Let me ask you a question. Baruch Hashem, you're sitting here. If you could spend an hour with anyone in history who's no longer alive, schmooze with them, chill with them, speak to them, who would it be?
I would love to speak to my father again.
What do you speak to him about?
He was a good man. He knew how hard I worked to build this organization. I would love to show him what it is today. He's not here for a couple of years. I don't want to go too far in history, just to go back to my father. Give him a little. He worked so hard his whole life for his children, his family, his grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And he always had nachas from everyone, but I was his youngest. And I wasn't the Rosh Hashiva in the house.
Also, he believed in you.
He believed in me, yeah. And I want to show him what happened. I want to show him the recognition the organization got. And I think just to give him nachas, a little more.
He's definitely looking, from above at it. But it's not the same as you seeing him see that.
I would definitely. And also to just update him what's going on with the Mets. He was a big Mets fan.
Last night was tough.
And maybe don't bring that up in your conversation.
Yeah, listen, if
That's really beautiful.
If he wants to know, he has to know.
Orange is your color. Is there one mitzvah in particular that means the most to you, more than the others?
There is no doubt that v'ahavta l'recha kamocha is my mitzvah.
I had a feeling you would say that.
Yeah, I think that's the number one mitzvah. And the first mitzvah and the last mitzvah that every person should think about. And, I always say this, and this is an incredible thing, because a lot of people here that are listening, and I know you do Daf Yomi, right?
Yeah. Oh, you listen.
I just started, yeah.
So it says, Havei kovei tim Torah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mitzvah to be kovei. It's a doraita, right? You have to be kovei tim Torah. And you have to actually learn every day. What does that mean? You have to be kovei. You have to make up a time. You can't start switching it around. You can't say, I'll be kover Sunday and then at 2 o'clock and Monday at 3. Call me Tuesday, we'll see when. That's not the mitzvah. If you do that, you're not doing the mitzvah of Havei Kovei Litim Torah. Rabbi Nebenzahl, that I heard is from the old city in Yerushalayim, he said that in Chesed, you're not allowed to be Kovei Itim Chesed. A Jew has to be Kovei 24/7 for Chesed. Whenever you have an opportunity, you have to do the Chesed. Whenever someone comes over to you and says, "Help me, I need help. My mother's this, whatever," that you have to run and help them. And it's actually it's an avera to be kovei itim to chesed. That means you do only Tuesday at 3 o'clock. That's the only time I'm doing chesed. So I think v'ahavta l'recha kamocha is really what we all have to be wishing to do every second of the day.
What would you say is the worst advice? And now he's going to do the flip side of that question. What's the worst advice you've ever received? When I was 16 and a half years old, when I came to Magen David Adom, they said, stupid idea, just disappear. Like, this is not going to happen. And I almost did. Because it was a monster. It was a big organization. I was nothing. I was, and I think not giving up to the bad advice I got then, and I got many of the same advice over the years, by the way. It was in different stages of life. They said, just close the organization. This not should exist. And not listening to the advice, it actually, I fought against that advice. It actually created an empowered you.
Yeah.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
From my father. My father saw the disappointment I had when I came back home. And he used to ask me, did you save anyone that day? Because he used to see me coming back from an 8-hour shift in an ambulance. And he said, no, did you save anyone? And I told him, no, I didn't save anyone. And he said, and he saw how angry, how disappointed I was. He said, Ellie, don't give up. You'll continue this. You'll eventually save someone. And I think not giving up was my father's advice. And look at it today.
It's really beautiful.
I have one more question.
I have one more question also.
If you should live in Rich Shem at Meva Esrim, what do you want Ellie Beer to be remembered for?
The Meshuggah with the orange vest.
I think it's definitely already iconic that you are in the vest. Like it's.
You could put down. You could put a tombstone. You could put an orange vest.
I don't mind my tombstone orange, but Ad Me'avesri, it has to be after that.
Right, Rich. Well, do I even say that? I don't know. In the right time.
I'm happy when people say to me, Ellie, we never saw someone, people and you come with a suit and a tie and everything. I said, this is my uniform.
Yeah.
I'm like one of the volunteers in Israel. I'm a volunteer in Israel. I go out to calls like a regular volunteer. I have to wear this because I'm representing 6,500 people, and one day I'll represent 15,000 people.
It's a shame.
So this is us.
So the question I have is that 7-year-old boy that choked and passed away, that kind of, I guess, started
impetus,
this whole
yeah.
thing, right? Good word.
Thank you.
Welcome. Did you ever go back to his mother to like show her what was the result of all of this?
You know, for a few years, I always wanted to. First of all, in the beginning, it took time to start this, but I don't know if what happened to them. I'm not sure if even they stayed married, that family. I think they left. It was a French family, if I don't mistake. It's many, many years ago. And I didn't really know that family. I didn't know where and I think they separated, unfortunately, because a lot of children who pass away, the parents have a very hard time coping with it, unfortunately. And I'm not sure. I wish one day I meet her. I don't know if I'll ever meet her.
Well, she's listening.
Yeah, or you know, but it gives that gives, I think, chizuk. People unfortunately go through such hardships in life, unbelievable, and you don't really know. Sometimes it feels like that's the end of the story, somewhat. But like this person is okay, terrible tragedy, they go on with life. They don't even know what actually happened. Again, it's to you and all the volunteers, of course, but like that event, it has such an impact that look how many thousands and thousands of people have been saved.
I'll tell you something. We don't usually follow up with people we treat. It's interesting. We treat almost 2,000 people a day. It's very hard to follow up on people. But I got a phone call this week from a woman, and she says to me, Ellie, her name is Sarah. She says, Ellie, a year ago, next to Beit Shemesh, my son was drowning in a pool, and we pulled him out of the pool. He was not breathing, no pulse, no nothing, dead. And Hatzalah volunteer, the first one was Yogi Rimmel, and a few others that were around the area came and started performing CPR, and we brought him to the hospital with a helicopter. She said, my son a year ago, when he got to the hospital, the doctor says he has no chance of surviving, and if he does, he's going to be damaged for life. And 2 days later, he woke up crying, Ima, Ima, Ima. And she says to me, this woman, Sarah, that your guy saved my life, and I'm calling you because it's my birthday of my son. It's my birthday of the day he was saved. It's the second birthday. And she said, I want to become a volunteer of United Hatzalah. And I registered to become a volunteer. So I heard that. I said, wow. Usually I don't follow up with people. Everyone goes, we have so much more to do. But a mother like that calls me up and gives me chizuk. It gives me the strength. You know what? She's going to become a volunteer. And now she's going to give back to the, Am Yisrael saved her, and now she's going back to save others.
The last thing, it's not a question, but like if someone wants to help United Hatzalah, even people in America, is there a place that they could, I don't know, donate or something like that?
Thank you for asking that question.
Sure.
I really appreciate it.
We're happy to plug.
Yeah,
good
so
people.
that would be amazing if anyone could go on our website. You learn everything. You could see videos. You'll see this podcast.
Cool.
But you could actually go into israelrescue.org. Very simple. You could put it down. israelrescue.org. Yeah, we did it because, Hatzalah is hard to
Yes,
to
I just
spell.
still don't know how to spell it. Well, I
funny.
see it on there. Okay, so
But everyone spells it differently.
yeah,
Yeah.
H, no H. At the end.
Even in like America.
Yeah,
Like
this-
Williamsburg, bar, like they spell it differently.
Yeah,
Everyone
it's-
spells
it's
differently,
hard,
and we had a woman who actually sent us a check for $18,000, a beautiful donation. It said, "Friends of United Hezbollah,"
Oh God.
and we had a hard time,
And now-
depositing a Hezbollah
And then the
check.
bank's like, no, this is going to the Al Qaeda. Like this is going,
United Taliban. Thank you
So
so
we
much for all that you
we
do.
actually changed the name on the website at least to israelrescue.org, and
That's
it's
great.
easy.
Right. And then
All
you
right.
go there and yeah.
Perfect.
Well, Ellie Beer. Also, I'm gonna call you Hatzalah Man for now on.
I like that.
And thank you for spending time with us.
Thanks for having me. Hope to come again.
What an episode!
Yeah.
That was so good.
Well, we'll
He's
let
so
them
good.
decide.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like-
true. Yeah, you might have listened and be like, I don't like this inspiration and cool people that they have on.
Yeah.
That's my voice of people who don't like us. But yeah, Ellie's a great guy and so sweet, such a sweet person. I always tend to think that like someone who starts something very big, a lot of times they're like they have to be mean. Like everyone, like the classic Steve Jobs, like started Apple. It's an incredible organization, incredible company. But everyone who knew in person is like, oh, he's a mean guy. We got to meet him and just see how he interacts with people. What a sweet person he is.
Right, and he definitely has saved thousands of lives.
Yeah.
Not maybe with his bare hands, maybe still with his bare hands, but just with the idea that he put into the world, cutting down the response time to tragedies
Crazy.
by like 1,000,000%.
Think of the schusim he gets for that.
Crazy schusim.
Crazy schusim. So if you listen to this, you could, donate to United Hatzalah. They always use the help, so go there. And also talking about Israel, we're also, as you heard on this episode, thedreamraffle.org. If you want to go to Israel, and we hope when you go to Israel, you never need United Hatzalah, but you go to thedreamraffle.com and you get $10 off when you put in the code MPP, and you could get so many tickets, right? Pretty sure it's doubled, right?
Yeah, it's guys, you know the thing. Just go for it. Buy your tickets and just wait for that drawing, and you might win. And I just want to say one more thing.
Sure.
You guys all you heard how Ellie Beer started this United Hatzalah. He had this one idea based off something that happened to him, and he literally changed the world. And I think it's really interesting to note that if you experience something,
there's a bug on my mic. You're like giving this whole inspirational
it was
thing.
on mine also, by the way.
Really?
I sent it to you. I said, go. Basically, start something. It might change the world. Maybe it won't, maybe it will, maybe one idea will, one idea will flop, but things happen for a reason. This happened to Ellie Beer for a reason when he was younger, and look what happened because of it.
That's really beautiful.
So never stop doing. Ciao.
TheDreamRaffle.com.